Hey, Buy Then Build. It's Walker Dybel. I wanted to take a second and talk about one of the biggest topics in the Buy Then Build Facebook group this last week, which has been the concept of the personal guarantee. Now, we had a buyer who came forward and said that they had a bank loan and a seller note, and the seller was asking for a personal guarantee on the note, and what did we think about this, and etc. And the community piped in, which is always helpful, but some of the potential buyers in the group started saying things like, oh, I would never put a personal guarantee on a business, it's way too risky, and all of these other things. And that's fine, and acquisition entrepreneurship might not be for them, or they might be looking for that needle in a haystack kind of opportunity. But for me, the thing is that, like, if you are coming into acquisition entrepreneurship and you are wanting to get the best results quicker and the best opportunities and get the business you want, then understanding how the private capital markets work and the different levers that you can pull in order to have a successful search so that you can be CEO of your own company is critical in navigating that process. And so, the thing is that the first company that I bought back in 2008 was a book printing company, and we were doing about $8 million in annual revenue. We had, 125 large publishing companies as the customers. But the reason why I bought this company rather than others was not necessarily for the reasons you might think. The biggest one was that I didn't have any money. And so I needed a bank loan in order to do a true leveraged buyout. And so what happened was I had to find a business where the balance sheet showed enough value in assets, or more importantly, a third-party assessor was able to value a lot of the equipment in the facility as being enough to cover the loan. That's a true, historical leveraged buyout is what they would call it, where the assets of the business work as the collateral for the loan. That alone was the reason why I was able to buy that company versus another 8 that I was looking at that time, where I couldn't appropriately get the deal structured and financed in the right way. I wondered at that time, as I wondered for the years following, why I couldn't buy other businesses that were more profitable, that were less capital intensive, that had a stronger revenue per employee, stronger, more profitability because they were kind of lightweight businesses, but they had a better future outlook, a better, an easier to execute strategic vision, and so on and so forth. And it just wasn't the case back then. Over time, the Small Business Administration has basically come forward to the lenders and said, listen, these small businesses that are transacting under or a little over 5 million in transactional value. A lot of them don't have all of these assets in order to transact, and so we want to act as the collateral to the bank. But in order to do that, we're going to need a personal guarantee from the buyer. Okay, but that little thing led to a big difference in our ability to, as individuals and entrepreneurs, to acquire existing companies. And the little thing that made the big difference there is that we were able to make essentially cash flow based loans with lenders in order to make these acquisitions. Okay, and so the thing was that number one, it was instrumental in the middle market, which is that sort of $10 million to $150 million transactional value, where cash flow loans were available. They were not available for deals under 10 million until about January 1st, 2018. That's true, okay? And it's because of these initiatives taken by the SBA, all right? Number two, the SBA understands two things. Number one, after decades of people buying existing companies with SBA loans, the default rate has consistently remained under 2%. Okay, so you might think oh, I would never take a loan as a personal guarantee on a loan to buy a business. Well, the thing is that this is actually how it works. So if you don't have the cash to buy the business, cash in your account, then that means in order to get that loan, you need either collateral or a personal guarantee. Okay, And if you don't have the collateral and you don't have the cash, then a personal guarantee is going to be required. Now, I don't want to run down this rabbit hole on this video. There is a small percentage of sellers out there who have no other buyers. Their business is ultimately non-transferable, is what we would call it in the space. And you might be a willing buyer at the table, okay? And you might be able to work out some sort of special deal, okay? These things happen. It's not how the private capital markets work, all right? And the thing is that when you want to buy a business and you want to buy a good business and make it great, the best thing that you can do to increase your margin of safety is buy a good business. Buy one that is sound. Buy one that is right for you, that has the right growth opportunity for you, that is something that you can capitalize on. This is buy then build, not buy then chill. It's active investing, right? And so when you take that business from the seller and you take over control and ownership and all of the cash flow moving forward, then that seller has nothing to do with operations anymore. So even in situations where there's usually seller notes are about 10, maybe 20%, depending on the story, they'll usually ask for a personal guarantee. And what I find is that most buyers, me included, are willing to sign it. There's a couple reasons why. One, you want to be a good buyer. If you want to know why you want to be a good buyer, go read Buy Then Build. Okay, it's in there. You want to be a good buyer. You want to stand out to that seller, and you are interviewing as CEO of that company. Number two, you need to be responsible for what it is that you're wanting to do. Okay, so you might be reducing risk by taking a seller note instead of a bank note. But the thing is that the banks want the seller note there, because what happens is in a worst case scenario, they get to cut out that seller note amount, and they get to work with the SBA on the balance, and they get a percentage of the remaining balance. So it's a way for them to sort of manage worst case scenario. Okay, if you happen to be a seller and you have a seller note with a buyer, what happens is in that worst case scenario, you get cut out. And because you get cut out, that is actually the risk. And so that's why sellers want a personal guarantee, because at the minute that they actually have to use it, it's kind of worthless anyway, because there's not a lot of cash flow. It gives them kind of a big stick to sort of hit your credit and do some damage on your credit, but that's really about all they can do given a worst case scenario. Otherwise, are you buying the business at this price or not? The first time I sold a business, I called my CPA and I said, hey, I just got an offer on my company, and the first thing the guy said was, great, does he have the money? And this is the first thing that sellers want to know. It's the first thing that brokers want to know. And if you are a buyer without money and you're trying to come in with 10 or 20% down in order to acquire a company, you're going to have to work with bank financing if you don't have the collateral. And I would fully expect that you need to be signing personal guarantees, because you got to have collateral or a personal guarantee in order to get those loans. Okay, so understanding the nuances like this on how the private capital markets work is half the battle in acquisition entrepreneurship, and will help lay the pathway down to success for you. If you want more information like this, stay in the Buy Then Build Facebook group, sharing videos like this, lots of help with the chief of staff and the other staff at Buy Then Build. And we also offer the Acquisition Lab, which is an 8-week program followed by an ongoing search forum until you buy a business. So keep that in mind. Feel free to apply, and see you next week.